to the guys that have 10-acre pieces of land or 20-acre pieces of land and they want to start it, but they're like, oh, this isn't for me. I don't have enough land. That's not true. Get in, get after it. Get yourself half-acre of land, make a food plot, do the work. You might not shoot 150, 140, 160-inch deer, but what you're going to do is you're going to make yourself a much more deer-friendly area if you do it right. It doesn't matter how much land you have. Just get in there, start doing it. You're going to have a blast doing it, and you will have success off of it if you do it right.
Did you know that you can use AI to become a better hunter? Here's what you got to do. Our team at HuntXP has built a custom AI. We call it Crockett. And it is the combination of the power of AI and the collective wisdom of hunters for many years mashed up together and put right in your pocket, right in the field where you can level up your hunting game. You can ask it things like, what's the best broadhead setup for my situation? What's the best day to hunt this week? All sorts of questions. You can take pictures of the snake you almost stepped on in South Dakota and say, is this a rattlesnake? That's something that actually happened to us. It's super fun. Our community is having a great time building this. We'd love for you to join in at huntxp.com. Join us.
Welcome to episode 3 of the HuntXP podcast. We're glad that you joined us. If you don't know about HuntXP, we're a community that exists to level up your hunting game. Hunting buddies who've been hunting a long time together, getting together, hearing stories from each other, and also stories from people whose experiences we admire. So today we got Jonny, as always, co-host, and we got a special guest joining us right off the bat, a cousin of mine, friend of Jonny's, Ben, who commands a lot of respect in our neck of the woods, on your two neck of the woods, in his hunting prowess. And we got a lot of great questions to ask him. Ben, why don't you introduce yourself to the crew? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your fam and what you like to do in the woods.
All right. Yeah, my name's Ben Larson. I have 3 kids. I have a wife named Shelby. Love her a lot. I love all types of hunting. Definitely love chasing whitetail deer the most, though. Yeah. Just love the outdoors. Love it all.
Ben, I have to. So we hunted together growing up as cousins. Like our family, it's in our bones to hunt. We did a lot of hunting shack stuff. We kind of came up around the same time. We got a lot of good memories, and I have to share at least one. You're welcome to share another one, but the one
duck hunting one. Yeah.
You want to share that one?
Is that the one?
That's the one I was thinking about. I was also thinking about statutes of limitations and if we're gonna get, if the DNR is gonna get called on this. But
no, we're good. Actually, I have 2. But
2. All right. Let go for it, man. Tell the story.
The duck hunting one's my favorite. We'll see if I tell it the same way you remember it. We JD and I, like you said, we go way back. His brother, Travis, he wasn't as big into hunting as JD and I. And he slept in. We were scouting some ducks, just very, very young. Ended up finding a bunch of ducks out in the sloughs near a highway. We headed out the next morning. We got out super early just because I was like, hey, we're going to beat everybody out there. We got out there. Nobody was there. We couldn't believe it. Ended up doing well. We thought we did well. Shot some greenheads, and I don't even remember what else. But I just remember we got back to the landing so excited. We ended up putting them on. Pumped. Put them on my truck windshield.
What kind of car was that? That was like
I think it was the car. It was a Toyota Camry. No exhaust, no radio.
Yeah. Nothing.
So I was 16. That was my first rig. And we were so proud of all our ducks. We put them on the front windshield, drove through town, got back home, told Trav, hey, you should have came with us because it was awesome.
It was.
Later that morning, we found out season ended the day before. That's why nobody was nobody was out there.
Oh man,
So
But you beat everyone.
we beat
everyone.
everyone.
we were so pumped. We were
We
so
were.
well, man. We were living our best life for sure.
I think that's what got me hooked too. I mean, scouting, doing well, beating everybody out there, just wasn't seasoned, but that's all right.
Oh, it was good.
Yeah.
That's
And
You live
one
and
of
you
those,
learn.
man.
yeah.
Yeah.
The other story quick was just with Trav. I don't know if you remember this, JD. We were deer hunting one time and we were all in the 4-wheeler, bombing down the power line, going way too fast. I think Trav was on the front rack, just ridiculous. We hit some bumps. He went off flying. We ran him over, stopped on top of him. We couldn't see him anymore. I got off, picked up the front. He crawled out, and it was just like, "You're good? You're alive?" All right.
And then, and there was like a foot of snow, so he was like
Yeah,
depressed
packed
in
in.
the snow. That's what happened. We ran him over and like pushed him down in the snow.
Mhm.
Yes, good times. I remember that same ride because you basically got frostbite on your hands. I think we were so
Yeah.
far from the shack. Just of course, just running all the deer out of the county with the
Mhm.
4-wheeler
Yeah.
right before opening.
Everything I'm against now. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Ben just like basically freezes his hands off, getting us back to the
Mhm.
shack because I don't think you brought your big gloves or whatever. So
Well, they were wet. It was hot. It was hot
Oh,
during
yeah.
the day, and then it froze right before dark, and just
Yeah.
so cold.
dude,
Yeah.
lots of great memories, man. And since you've met a lot of awesome memories too. You've kept investing in hunting and done really well, not only just chasing whitetails but growing them too. So
Mm.
that's kind of what we want to talk about. Let's dive into it. And I imagine Ben will be back on this podcast. He's honestly welcome back anytime, and we respect a lot of the knowledge you have. So it's hard to honestly pick what we want to focus on because I think there's so much you could share with the HuntXP community. But I kind of want to dive in and pick your brain specifically about land management because you've had the opportunity to take a tract of land and then several years shape the land and grow deer on it. So first, just give us the context. Like, how did your interest move in that direction from just setting stands up to actually shaping land for whitetail?
Yeah. I guess I've always loved to hunt, obviously, and after I started young, and after a few years of hunting, I guess I found success. We shot a lot of 2.5-year-old deer. We shot everything that came in front of us. We had a lot of public pressure, and all that was great. All that was I was educated by everything I did when I was younger, and as I got older and gained land and wanting to kill larger deer, I had to start learning different things, and I guess that's what really, when I started it all, having success really then sparked everything, and I started to learn as much as I possibly could, and grab information where I could grab it, and I guess that's what brought me to learning how to do food plots and managing deer, and
Yeah. Where
Where
were
I
some of
am
the
now.
first places you went to when you were searching that stuff out?
Podcasts like this, different, just Googling everything, certain, I wouldn't say I got in a lot of information from our local area at the time. That really makes me sound old, but we don't have, when I started, we didn't have a lot of food plots. We didn't have a lot of land management people up far north. So a lot of people think, oh, Wisconsin, oh, you have huge deer, you have land management, you're like, Wisconsin's like the go-to place, but we're very far north. A lot of a lot of public land. It's a different, you could go 3 hours south and it's totally different. The mindset down there is shoot mature deer, let everything else grow. So we're a whole different area. So I started kind of doing that, not me, I wasn't the only one, but I didn't have a whole lot of people to go to talk to about, hey, what should I do here? What should I do here? So I did. I looked online. Well, a lot of learning by failure. Definitely thousands of dollars into the ground that didn't work. But so yeah, I started trying to learn as much as I could and started cutting trees down and pulling them out of the ground and getting help on that side of things, and and continued to learn. But I got the basics off places like this, off podcasts and off Google. So
if I can jump in, JD, I was thinking as Ben's talking, like I know the hardship of the trial and error, and I know exactly what he's talking about with him kind of being, I would say, one of the pioneers up here of doing this. I mean, some people were, but not much. And Ben really, really, really went after it. And now, like the first person I called when I bought my piece of property was Ben. It's like, Ben, what do I do? What should I do with this property? And he has helped me with my food plots the last few years, and the results have been good. Like I live in a little different area where there's a lot of private and there's some big landowners around, but like even the little improvements we've made have helped hold more deer, and some are getting to be more mature, but also turkeys. And I know like the property that Ben has now that you're managing on, it's a pretty good haven for whitetails, and it's a really good haven for turkeys as well. And the cool thing about I think what you do, Ben, is you, especially with the turkeys, you invite people in, like you invite your friends and relatives in to take part in that with you. And I think that's a really special thing. Pretty cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And you just took one off of that land this year, right? I jumped right into it, but tell us, you're already tagged out in Wisconsin, and you called Jonny up. What was that, late September, and was like, I got one, man. Come help me find it. How did that go down? That was a beauty. I'll put a pic up if you don't mind on the podcast.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah.
Can I, before you explain, Ben, I just want everyone to know, JD at the beginning said how Ben's prowess is pretty well respected up here, his ability in the woods. Ben went in that night, and nothing is ever for sure, but Ben was texting me beforehand, and Ben knew he was going to kill that buck that night based off of what he knows about his property, the weather, all those things. It's because Ben, I feel like I'm stealing words out of your mouth here, Ben, but like Ben doesn't just go sit. Ben doesn't go in unless he knows there's a really good chance I'm going to shoot this buck. Because if I go and just sit, there's a good chance I blow it for the year with a mature buck. Ben is very calculated with when he sits, and that is something that everyone can take something away from there.
Yes.
Totally. And so break that down for us. What were you looking for? I mean, you don't have to give us all your trade secrets, but like what aligned there for you? Start the story there and then let us know what happened.
Okay, I'll start the story after I explain. I'll send you a pictured post where Jonny actually has a pistol, but he's using his finger.
Yep. We can get into that after you tell the story.
Okay, good. I'll just put that out there.
Because I'll talk about the recovery with you, and I'll tell everyone about the finger pistol.
Good. Okay. So, starting off with that deer, I don't know how far back we want to go, but 2 years ago, I met the deer. There was a two there. I call them the twins. Anyways, we'll jump forward. I watched them for a few years. they were local. I knew they were bedding on our land. So I leave those deer alone. As much as we can, leave them alone if you want them to grow. So this year, they actually, the one, he exploded into an 8-pointer. He was an 8-pointer for the past 2 years, but he just grew a lot of mass and everything. And I saw him and I was like, oh man, it's time to kill him. We got to get in there. And I wasn't expecting to get an October 1st kill. Normally, if you don't get it done early in the year, you kind of have that October lull till like the 19th, 20th. But I noticed that I had a camera running on a food plot that I had planted last fall, and it was a clover grain mix. And I noticed that I was getting a picture of a few deer that I wouldn't see in my bait pile, because I actually run a bait pile, because in Wisconsin we can. And I wouldn't get them in the picture, but I would see them in the background. So I actually moved a few cameras around, and actually, I figured out, hey, he's not coming into the bait. He's just hammering the clover. And he was in there for before season, mid-September. He was in the daylight. And then after season started, he was like a half hour late into the food plot every night. So I kind of waited, seeing what he was doing. I actually did catch him on camera in the bait pile a couple times in the daylight, and once I caught him on camera, I was like, hey, this is a good possibility, but I got to wait now. It got hot. I don't know if you remember, Johnny, it was probably mid 80s for a couple weeks in September. It was just ridiculous. So I ended up just waiting it out, continued to check both cameras, the food plot camera, the bait camera, and I ended up seeing a huge cold front coming in, which it didn't get that cold, but it went from 85 to 60 degrees in one day. And what happens when we had a small storm come in the day before, so you had this big low pressure come in, and which is a great time to hunt. I just didn't have the wind for it. So low pressure was good. It was still hot out. He actually daylighted in that food plot that night, and I was like, perfect. I got to sit him the next day, because it has, then the next day the low pressure kicked out, high pressure came in, and we were up, I think, in like 30.4 for the barometric pressure. And I was like, this is it. I gotta scoot out of work. I'm going to get in there. And hopefully it's like 10 minutes before shooting hours end when this thing makes a mistake, and so I get in, and sure enough, it was probably 5 minutes before shooting hours, and the thing entered my deer entered the food plot, and not where I wanted him to. I had all my windows closed. I'm sitting in a box blind, and so it was a lot of chaos going on, but I ended up pulling the right window out, getting in the right stance, and ended up getting enough light to stick an arrow in them. But so yeah, it was weather, cold front, pressure. I'm a big pressure guy. I know there's a lot of people out there that's some guys say pressure doesn't matter. To those guys, I say you don't know what you're talking about. Pressure's huge. If your pressure's up high, bucks are going to move. You might not always see a lot of deer, but your buck to doe ratio is going to be much better, and the deer you're going after.
Just want to slow down. So for someone who's not familiar with pressure, so you're looking for high incline, high fast incline for buck movement, and then when it drops, they're dropping their movement, or what are you looking for to jump out in the stand?
Yeah. Okay. So no, I'm actually looking for movement, any movement. A low pressure coming in. Yep. So the low pressure came in, and at this spot on the food plot, I couldn't hunt it because it was a northwest wind. And if a lot of guys, northwest wind, awesome wind to hunt. This spot specifically, I could not sit on a northwest wind. So if you get them coming in on a low pressure, fronts coming in, storm, cold snow, rain. That's a great time to hunt them. I just I couldn't sit because I will not sit if the wind's bad. I mean, you cannot sit on a bad wind. So the next day after, when the front moves out and your pressure starts to go back up, that's a great time to sit. It's like, I would say they're kind of equal. You have your pre-storm and then your after storm. And on the wind after the storm, your southwest winds around here, you're going to get high pressure, and that's what I got. So yeah,
Solid,
any movement at all is great.
Yeah.
So a cool thing about this story is, Ben and I hunt together a lot now, waterfowl, and we like to do we did a youth deer hunting weekend out at my family's shack. We had our kids out there, but so Ben and I exchange text messages all the time. Well, with my cousin Kevin as well, and he's texting us, and all of a sudden he's like, he just stepped out. And normally this is not what Ben is doing while he's hunting.
No.
He's normally
Giving
not
you the
texting,
play-by-play.
but he
Yeah.
was. So and no one in the world is faster at texting than my cousin Kevin. So it's like, Ben texts us, my deer stepped out. And then it was like, the suspense was, I didn't want to text him back because I'm like, I don't want his phone to like buzz while he's going to shoot or something. So
Right.
I'm not, it's like radio silent. And then it's like, did you get him? Like, we're just like on pins and needles. And then Ben is a phenomenal shot. And Ben doubted himself on his shot. And then he explained his shot. I'm like, no, dude, you smoked him. Like, but you know how it is when you're the one shooting, you're like, I don't know. Like, there's always that little bit of doubt unless you see him go down.
Yeah.
You don't know.
In my defense, I couldn't find my arrow. I don't push deer, but I went to the shot, and being up 20 feet, not a lot of deer that I've shot have I not got my arrow right away and looked it over, and it was, like I said, it was getting pretty close to dark. Shot, heard a noise. It was like, oh man, did I shoulder him? What happened? I don't have an arrow anymore. But yeah.
So then you called the crew, or did you go find him right away? And then how did you track him?
No. So my rule, I have a few rules in life. One of them is you do not push a deer after you shoot him, ever. Beavos don't listen to that rule.
Johnny, I listen to that rule.
I don't know about
Calling out the fam. Oh, man.
What are you talking about, me?
Well, yeah, okay. I have no experience with that yet, I guess, but
yeah,
no. My big rule is you shoot a deer, you spend all that time, you shoot it, just go relax. Go get some food, get your boys, do whatever you need to do. Give it a minimum of 2 hours before you even go in any further than your shot to check for blood and everything else. So I was texting Johnny and his cousin Kevin during the hunt, as I was also texting another group of my buddies, which are also Johnny's buddies, and they were on like notice, like, hey, you shoot one, give us a call. So we ended up having 4 guys. We met. Nice. We ended up heading into the woods to track the deer, and it was probably one of my most favorite retrieves ever.
Now we can talk about the finger pistol.
Okay.
So when we go to track deer, now I always, like, when I go to track my own deer, like, I usually have a handgun with me. I'm a school teacher, so I can't keep one in my truck. So I went back to my house to get I was at my house and I wanted to go help Ben. And as I'm leaving, I'm like, I should grab my handgun. And then I'm like, nah, there's going to be a bunch of us. It's okay. Because, yeah, there's predators around, and not that we've ever really had too scary of an experience, but I'm like, there's plenty of us guys. No big deal. So I get there, and when I get to Ben's house, I hop in the truck with him. Ben's got his handgun. Our buddy Schmitty's got his handgun. We pick up Mitch. Mitch has his handgun. We meet Kevin. Kevin has his handgun. And I'm like, well, you guys, I got this. So I had my finger pistol. So there's a really funny picture of all of us. They have their handguns drawn, and I just have my little pew pew pew, pew. Pistol.
Perfect. Man, that's fun. Having a retrieval with the hunting buddies, it's hard to beat that, man. That's really fun.
Well, and then
Got to get
we
you with a
find
camera in your hand next time.
we do, but
Yeah.
we find so we get into the food plot, and Ben's like, well, he was standing about here, and Mitch finds some blood, and then it's a pretty easy trail to follow. And Ben had said, like, I heard him jump the little ditch, and I heard some thrashing, but I don't know, because Ben was still like unsure of his shot. Well, the thing was laying right there. It must have went 60 yards.
Nice.
Yeah. So
Yeah, wasn't too far.
ended up being a really, a good shot.
It was.
Good stuff, man. Well, I know that's not your only one, man. I know you got plenty of stories of watching deer and then taking them. How many have you killed on that particular property that you've been growing them on?
I would say, I think I've shot in five deer around. Yeah. Yep. So I shot this 8-pointer scored 132 inches. I shot 2 years ago. I shot another one an 8-pointer that was 144 inches, and shot a few 10 in a nice 11. And then the owner, he shot a few 10s as well, a couple 9s. But originally, as soon as we got it, I made the mistake of just being so excited about 3-year-olds and shooting these 10s. And we cleaned up probably 4 or 5 10s in the first 2 years. And if I had it all, like if I could do it over, if I watched a podcast like this, I'd be like, man, don't shoot your young 10-pointers. And that's what we did. So it's been taking a little while to get back in getting those 10-point genetics in again. And this year we're sitting on a couple 10s that are 3.5. We have one, he might be 4.5. Real nice deer. Hard to let him go.
Yeah.
So
all
yeah,
right, man. So go ahead, Ben.
Well, I was just gonna say we've been successful, and hopefully we continue to grow bigger deer and be more patient.
It's worth noting, I think, real quick, JD, I think it's worth noting that what Ben had said earlier in the podcast of like, we're way up north, and I think the hunting culture is a little bit different for most, like as a whole. Obviously, there's people who are going to wait on a mature deer, but there's a lot of people who are just going to shoot anything with an antler on this public land, especially. But like I've always said, like a 3.5-year-old deer, especially on public land in this area, that's a trophy deer.
Yeah.
And I know that's kind of shocking for some people around the country. Like, what do you mean? Like, we're not even looking at a 3.5-year-old deer. But like up here, for most people, that's a trophy deer. Now, Ben and his property, like you said, he was excited right away. But now it's like, no, I mean, Ben's waiting for that deer to be 4.5, 5.5 years old before he's thinking about shooting it now. And I think that's a really big reason why he's had continual success on his piece of land.
That's awesome, dude. And I just admire the dedication. I mean, year after year, it's got to be so hard to see those antlers trail cams and be like, no, I'm going to let that one grow. Yeah. I mean, where we grew up, like how we grew up is like a 1.5-year-old basket rack comes by your corn pile and you're like smoking.
Yeah, for sure.
So like, it's quite the evolution to be able to have that patience. I would love to been, selfishly, honestly, if I ever got an opportunity to manage land like you and Jonny do, for both of you, Jonny, from your own experience now on your own land, and then Ben, having coached Jonny a little bit, but then now experience on this land, let's just walk it through. Say you get like 100 acres or something like that. What are you looking at first? If someone just plops an opportunity like that in front of you, what are you looking for on the existing property, untouched first? What are you looking for to start making a game plan?
Is this a question for Jonny or for me? Me?
Either one of you guys,
right.
mostly you. Jonny can jump in wherever.
Okay. So for me, it doesn't matter if you have a 5-acre piece or a 500-acre piece. First thing you got to do is look at the bedding area. Where are the deer bedding? Because that's where they're going to come back to every night, every morning. And that's the bedding is what sets up your food plots. It sets up your stand. It sets up everything. So the first thing I do at any property I go to help anybody out is just like, hey, where do you know where your deer bed? If you don't, let's take a walk. Let's figure out where your deer are bedding. Because that, like I said, that's your groundwork that you need to know before you can do anything. So, second thing is finding the food. Because once you know the bedding, once you know where they're going to eat, whether it's like an acorn ridge, you got a lot of oaks, or if you're hunting egg fields, you still need to know where they're going to be going towards. If they're going to be bedding, then they're going to be heading towards the food. You gotta figure that stuff out. So yeah,
Ben,
yeah.
I was gonna say a question then, right? So, well, JD, my first thing that I look at is my cell phone, and I call Ben. That's the first thing I do.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, I would echo, right? You got to know where they're bedding. You got to know where our food source is. Now, say you're in an area where you don't have like a lot of oak, like my property doesn't have many oak trees at all, and they're not producing a ton of acorns or anything. There's some distant egg fields, but really mine is like, I have 13 acres of field and 37 acres of wood. Now there's water on it. It's up and down. Ben, you've been on it plenty. JD, you've been on it plenty. But like a scenario like that, I felt the need I had to create a food source because there wasn't like a lot readily available on my property as far as that went. There's bedding, but there wasn't a ton of food. So like, Ben, my question would be, or if you could explain to people who are listening, like, say you have a chunk of land, what percentage are you trying to make food source if there is a cookie cutter answer?
I guess it's hard to say like what percent for a food source. In my mind, it's more what percent are you going to leave for bedding. So if you have, like Jonny, for your land, you have bedding everywhere. All those ravines, it's thick. You have all the right bedding. What percent are you going to leave for bedding? How close can we get with a food plot before we take too much of that bedding area up, where a mature buck's going to leave that bedding area? If that makes any sense at all.
Yeah,
for sure.
The other part to answer your question with like what percent for your food plot, like how big do you go? As big as you can, as big as you can afford, as big as you want to do year in, year out. I guess that's the answer for the food plot.
And why is that? Just quantity draws more deer, or then they have more to eat through, or why big as you can go as your budget allows?
So if you have the bedding and it's just food specific, if you're talking food specifically, you have the deer, they're bedded, or they're bedded on your neighbors and you want to draw them towards you to where the food is. The bigger you can get, the more deer you're going to be able to feed. And the type of food plot, you're going to be able to put different types of like plant different types of food in that one food plot. If you just do one big one, so you can feed them throughout the year. So the bigger, maybe you do 3 instead of one big one. It's all like that works too. I don't have any like huge ones. The largest one I have is actually 4 acres. But yeah, the more food you can get, the better you are.
So then once you get bedding nailed down, and let's just assume that there is food sources, but you want to put a food plot in, how do you go about assessing the best place for that? Do you look for existing meadows or features that would be easy to transform, or are you looking for a certain level of proximity to bedding area? Are you looking for wind direction, and are you kind of game planning for the end goal at that point? How do you go about setting a plan for where the plot is?
all of those things you brought up were right on. So wind direction you want to plan on. To me, the first thing I look for is bedding to the existing food. Get in between it. And there are two types of food plots. There's a kill plot, and then there's a large feeding plot. And honestly, up in our area, you're doing more kill plots. I would say anything above a 2-acre food plot would be like a feeding plot. Anything under 2 acres would be a kill plot. So you can have a lot of success getting in between a bedding area and a food source with a kill plot. And that could be an acre of clover, could be an acre of turnip. But yeah, so that's how I look to place either a kill plot or a feeding plot. Now, a feeding plot's a little different. If you have a little bigger tract land, it actually really doesn't matter. If you have a 20-acre piece and you're going to make a big feed plot, get that thing to the center of your property if you can, if it allows, from your bedding area. Doesn't matter the wind, you don't want other hunters having success off your hard work. So get that food plot in the center of your land in an area where you're not going to be in it all the time. Get that plot, pulling the deer off of other people's land onto yours. That's the success with.
Is that because I've heard from different sources like doe bed in closer proximity to food, and then bucks are typically a little bit further back from that food source. So you have kind of some, is it right in thinking that you have some concentric circles from that food where bedding, you might get deer bedding off of your land or further than your land? Or is that something that you factor in at all?
Yeah, no, I mean, for sure. Definitely once you plop a food plot down in the middle of the woods, the does aren't going to go far. I mean, they can be anywhere from 12 yards off the food plot to 200 yards. But generally the bucks, and speaking just mature bucks, they're going to be further back. They're going to be where they're not pressured. They're going to be where they want to bed. Not necessarily, they're not going to come bed just because of your food source. They're going to stay where they feel safe and where they want to be. So that could be on your neighbor's land. It could be on your land. But if you're drawing those deer to your either a kill plot or a large feeding plot, you're taking them away from your neighbor, and you don't want them to be hunting your big food plot all your work.
So just double clicking on wind a little bit, are you factoring in what the prevailing winds are during like late October and then going from there, or like during rut, or how are you factoring wind in with food plot placement?
So for me, wind is I keep saying this, I say a lot of things are very important. Wind is just up there with the most important thing.
Wind is king. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't kill a mature buck if your wind's not right. So
wait, you can't just spray yourself down and be good? It doesn't work that way?
No, it doesn't.
Really?
What?
It doesn't work that way. No, you can't have your son dump gasoline on your rest like he did tonight before our hunt, and tip the gas can on his rest and see deer. So no.
Shoot.
But yeah, wind is so critical. When I'm picking out how to make a food plot, or if I'm at somebody's land and we're looking at it, it's like, where's your bedding? Where's the feed? And how are we going to put this to where you could hunt it on a wind? Yeah. I said earlier, I love the northwest wind. You have a lot of storms, a lot of fronts moving in with the northwest wind. It's great. If you can figure out how to do that on your food plot and hunt the northwest, that's perfect. For me personally, on our land, we're kind of we have a harder time doing that with the northwest because the river is directly to our south. And a lot of the deer are coming from the ridges in the river, and then they work up. So we really have everything kind of set up for that south, southwest, southeast, anything with south in it. But there is ways around that, which is kind of how I like to hunt food plots. You start, you get your kill plot, you get your food plot, and if you can't get the right wind figured out for the food plot, hunt trails coming to it. Get that wind in your favor in between your food plot and the bedding. Get in there quiet and hunt that. Hunt the food source without actually sitting over top of it. And I see so many guys do that where they make a food plot and they get so excited. It's probably the hardest thing it's the hardest thing for myself is not to go in and sit a food plot when I see 25 deer in it every night with 2.5-year-olds, 1.5-year-olds, 3.5-year-olds. It's just like, man, that'd be so fun to sit there. And it's just like, you can't. So
can't do it.
You can't do it. You can't sit a kill plot even. You can't sit a food plot that's large for feeding. If you sit that food plot, even on a good wind, you eventually have to get out. And no matter your access, you're going to get busted. So to help with the wind, to help not spooking the deer, you drop that stand in between the food source and that food plot to get that northwest wind if you need to. So,
all right, real quick backup, break down the difference between a kill plot and a food plot. Obviously, there's a size difference, but you're going in planning that differently. So break that down. What's the difference?
Yeah, that's a good question. So with a kill plot, you're looking at less than 2 acres and maybe even less than one and under. With I call it just like a food source, food plot, a feeding plot, that's going to be a larger plot. And the first thing that a lot of guys ask me is they get this piece of land and they're like, hey, what do you think we should do? I'm really thinking we can plant some soybeans in here, get some corn rolling up in here. And I'm like, hey, awesome. How big is your food plot? And I would say 80% of the times guys are like, my food plot's at least 4 acres. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to come out. We'll take a look at the area and we'll see how big it is. And I get there and it's maybe an acre, maybe 3/4. We got to do some math here. It looks a lot bigger than it actually is. So, the kill plot being small, the biggest difference is for what you can plant in a kill plot versus a feeding plot. You cannot plant corn, you can't plant soybeans in a kill plot. An acre of soybeans is not going to last. I did it several years when I was younger. 2 acres in a kill plot, 1.5 acre, I'd plant soybeans, and they looked so good till they got about 4 inches, and I came back and it looked like I just dissed the whole thing up. It was dirt. It's all gone. So you have no success. So don't just watch TV and go plant corn and soybeans, because that's what all these guys with 10,000 acres are doing and with 10-acre food plots. Find what works in a small plot, get feed in between the bedding and the feed they want to get to, and plant something different. My favorite kill plot, 100% clover, turnip mix. I'm sorry, I don't mix them. I don't like to mix them. I put them in the same plot, but I don't mix them together. It's not like clover and turnips mixed together.
They're both available in the plot every season.
Rotate them. Yeah, rotate them on and off. A lot of times, if it's just like an acre plot, actually, the deer I killed this year was on roughly like an acre, and that was 100% clover that I'd planted with grain the year before. And so the deer, as soon as it became spring in this kill plot, the deer had food with the grain that came up early and the turkeys. And then once the grain actually got too far past what the deer liked, I came in, mowed it down, and then your clover just shoots up beautifully, and it's great. So then I was left with just a pure clover plot for the fall. And what the deer were doing is they were hitting it for a couple hours before they moved out to the larger egg fields. So
yeah,
but I don't know if I answered your question. A kill plot, small.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, that makes perfect sense. Let's talk about access then. So, are you doing anything? So you said like you shy away from hunting the plots themselves. Not, I mean, sometimes it just depends on the scenario, but are you building features in and to those plots that help you with access? And then how are you managing access to minimize impact with those scenarios that you talked about earlier, where you're hunting the trails from bedding to that food source? What are you trying to build out to help with that?
So for me personally, I can answer this question with this property, but everybody's property is going to be different with where the deer are bed. So even from one food plot of mine to the next, it's actually all different. But the one thing that I focus on is access, getting into it and getting out without leaving my scent where the deer are going to be coming from, and trying to bust the deer when I leave. So all of the food plots and all of the deer stands cutting off the food plots that I'm setting up, I'll never try to access it where I think a deer is going to be coming from. Because I'm sure any whitetail hunter in the woods has probably cut a trail and walked in somewhere and then got up in their stand and actually saw a deer walk across their trail 3 hours later and like actually stop where where their feet actually walk. It's just crazy. You cannot walk where you want a mature buck to walk and come from. So I set everything up high. I have a main trail that I actually put in. That was the first thing I did, was put in a trail at the top end of our property. And then I just made chutes coming down. And we actually have no travel trails through, probably August, that we don't want to travel at all, and leave it through the rest of the year till end of bow season, where the bottom end of the property doesn't get touched. You travel just the top end and use those chutes to come down and access cameras, bait piles, hunt food plots, hunt deer stands. But then you walk those same trails back out. So any deer that does cross your scent line as you come in has already been past you on the hunt.
Got it.
One other thing that I've noticed that you've done, and you had talked to me about it when you helped me with my property, was when you cleared your plots, you used the area, like you used the trees and some of the dirt and stuff, and you made essentially you made walls where you didn't want the deer to walk. You kind of you know how, like, if you're just out, let's just say in the woods, and it's very obvious if you know what to look for, how the land funnels all movement, like, right? So like the land is going to tell you where to go, or where it's easier to go, like path of least resistance. Well, the deer do that too, right? Like that's why if you have a ridge top and a saddle, there's going to be a really good trail right on that saddle going through. It's the easiest way to do it. So when Ben talked to me about it, he was like, hey, listen, you need to pile stuff up here. You need to make sure, if this is where you want your stand, that a deer is not going to walk right through there. And Ben's property is like this. There's like these walls when he cleared these plots of the deer can't walk. Like they're not going to walk right to his stand. They're not going to be right on him, because he's basically said, no, deer, this is the way you're going to travel into this plot. This is going to be the easiest way for you to get there. And this is the way you're going to do it. And that I thought was awesome.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that works great. That's one of my favorite things to do. When you're bulldozing trees down and you have the excavator in there whipping them around, you have the bedding area picked out. You still have those deer when you're in the middle of the woods that just don't want to cooperate. They either swing around downwind and they try to catch your scent, and they try to come in where you don't want them to come in. So if you have machinery in there and you have the trees to do it, or the dirt or whatever, I've used hay bales, round bales before. If you can take it, a lot of my stands are set up on the east side of the food plot. It'd be like the northeast side of the food plot. So what I do is I try to make a barrier, just a big old berm on that whole side. So I don't really have any deer can't access that food source from behind me. So I don't have to worry about a deer coming up from behind me and catching my scent. They're obviously going to catch your scent if they circle way behind it, but that's not going to be the natural way they walk into that food plot. Same with deer and rut. They're not going to just come running in and jump over a big berm and run over a bunch of sticks and stuff. They're going to run around it. And I don't know how many different times I've had rutting deer just chugging through the woods, and I'm like, oh man, they're going to catch my scent. And then they have to over one way or another and kind of run around that whole side of the food plot. So I kind of do it in different areas, even on the other sides. Like I'll push them one way or another to make a little funnel. I'll collapse an end a little, like to make one end of the entrance a little more narrow, so they have to come in on the narrow side. But neighboring properties, if you have to, cut them off. Cut them off from the neighboring properties a little bit more, so the neighbors, if you have to put one next to the neighbors, they can't sit right on the edge. They got to figure it out. But
that's good. Give us the big mistakes to avoid if you're starting off in this.
Oh man, I have a lot of mistakes. Food plot wise, when it comes to food plots, the biggest mistakes I see people make year in, year out, and myself included, even though I know it, I still make the same mistakes over. I do food plots for ducks, geese, deer, anything I can shoot. My biggest mistake that I've made in the past, and the biggest mistake I see, is once you get your food plot established, you get all the trees off, or you're taking an egg field and you're just turning it over and saying, hey, I'm going to make this a 2-acre food plot. Guys will go to L&M, Fleet Farm, Cabela's, wherever they're getting their seed, and they'll go toss it in the ground. And then they get to the point where it's like, hey, this is how much fertilizer is required. Or, hey, do a soil test. And then it pops up and it says, hey, you need to lime, you need to fertilize. This is how many pounds per acre you have to put down. And the biggest mistake I see is guys they'll say, okay, I need 400 pounds of 19 fertilizer to grow a successful food plot. And then they'll go out and they'll be like, oh, that's tight. I'm running, that's a lot of money. I'm just going to take and put out 50 pounds. And then every year they continue to do that, and their food plots are just terrible. And it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, if you can't afford it, there are ways around it. You just got to figure out the right blends. You got to figure out what to plant that you don't need as much fertilizer for. But just don't go out and plant what everybody's telling you to plant. That's going to require all this fertilizer to make. You need to fertilize. You need to follow the instructions for seeding, or else you're just going to be throwing your money into the ground and nothing's going to happen. You're not going to get it. It's not going to be as productive. So that's
good.
one of the biggest. I should say that's the biggest. The other one is just, like I said earlier, how hard it is. Guys want to sit their stands. They want to sit the food plots. They want to go in and see the deer. My uncle, Chapers, I could tell you tons of things with him that he's like the answer to like this whole question. What's the worst thing that could happen? Him.
So we should bring him on the pod.
We should bring him on the podcast.
This is what you don't do.
Yeah, you don't eat pickled northern. Yeah, you don't eat
northern
pickled
story
northern.
That's an incredible story.
Yeah. The deer smelled me while you were eating pickled northern. Oh, that's weird. But no,
if a human nose can smell it, man, it's bad.
Oh man.
So don't oversit stands. Get yourself trained to just, if you really want to shoot a mature buck, don't oversit stands until it's November. Then do what you want. I don't care what you do. Just go get in there. If your wind's right, just get in, get after them. But don't oversit your stands until then. It's just gonna, you're not gonna kill big bucks.
It's good stuff, man.
Those are the two biggest.
Anything else you want to say about this? As I said at the beginning, like, we'd love to have you back because there's lots more we can talk about in terms of chasing whitetail, waterfowl, other things. But anything in related to growing and shooting big deer that you want to add?
Not really. I mean, maybe to the guys that have 10-acre pieces of land or 20-acre pieces of land and they want to start it, but they're like, oh, this isn't for me. I don't have enough land. That's not true. Get in, get after it. Get yourself a half acre of land, make a food plot, do the work. You might not shoot 150, 140, 160 inch deer. But what you're going to do is you're going to make yourself a much more deer friendly area if you do it right. It doesn't matter how much land you have. Just get in there, start doing it. You're going to have a blast doing it, and you will have success off of it if you do it right.
I can attest to that. I've been over the years trying to just make my property better. And I have a neighbor who has a ton of land and he has a ton of food plots. And on the other side of him is a farm with a bunch of like corn and all this stuff. So tons and tons of deer are over there. It's not very easy for me to hold, like you're talking about, like really big bucks on my property. They mostly just travel through during November. But what I do have now, because of talking to Ben and establishing some food on the area, is I have a pretty good doe population that live on my property, and I know exactly where they bed, and I know exactly which way they come into my food plot, and I know that in the next week or two, I can set up on a trail or on that plot and have a chance at one of these bigger bucks that is coming through checking that bedding area. And so I've been able to hold more deer on my property, and I've noticed every year it seems like, and especially after last winter, which was really mild, this year I'm like, this is the most deer I've seen on my property, and they're all centralized around this food plot, which is really cool.
How much does this all cost?
You're talking like let's just say like a kill plot, 1 acre. I don't know.
Just give us a rough estimate, like, and then like equipment. Are you renting this stuff, or you have access to it? Just start with how much it costs for like the seed and prep and all that stuff.
Okay. Yeah. So if you have access to a tractor, like I have a tractor and I actually used to run a disc. I have a rototiller now. Love the rototiller, cultipacker, that sort of stuff. If you have all the equipment, seed isn't the expensive part. I mean, you're going to be spending on a 1 acre piece, maybe roughly around $150, $200 on seed. And then fertilizer is probably going to be your most expensive piece to that. Fertilizer is expensive now. So you might be spending, depending on what you plant, you might be spending around $200 to $400 on fertilizer. So between that, diesel fuel, $500-$600, you got yourself a 1 acre to 3/4, 3 acres, or 3/4 of an acre to an acre food plot.
What are you talking about? 5 acres. That's actually one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. 5 acres?
It's 5 acres. Well, I'm just joking about the guys who are
yeah. No,
I got 4 acres.
Yeah, I got
That's
4 acres. That's
actually 1 acre.
Yeah. Which people end up doing, and then they overseed it because they don't actually figure out. Find your Onyx, go to your thing, and actually it'll draw the map.
Yeah,
figure out exactly how large of a piece you're doing. Saves you a lot of money, and it'll actually produce. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Ben, appreciate your time, man. It's fun chatting. Thanks for being here. We'll have you back, I'm sure.
Next time, tell me we're gonna. I need to have clothes on because.
No, I think
we should. A little shaky.
I think you're onto something here. I think you're onto something.
Oh, that's good. All right. Well, that was sweet to have Ben on. Jonny, anything that you picked up new there? I know you've been working with him a lot, but.
I don't know if I picked up anything new because I pick his brain literally all the time about this stuff. But
because you get the play-by-play all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. He's very he's very humble about it. He's very soft spoken about it, but the man has figured it out up here on his property in particular. He's on big deer all the time.
Yeah.
And even when he's out in like on public land, because I know he hunts that too, he knows what to look for. He knows what to do. And I'm fortunate to have a couple of guys in my life like that. I am not going to say I'm anywhere near their level with stuff. I have a lot of success, but I think it's largely because I'm asking these guys questions. So
yes, that's the value of a community, man. That's the value of being able to hunt with other guys, and that's part of the best experience of it.
That's right.
Sweet.
Yep.
Well, let's run through our things, man. We did this backwards. We jumped right into it with Ben, but we still want to check in with you all. So you heard about how we're doing. If you want to comment and add your perspective, thoughts, disagreements with what Ben said or what we said, we love to hear from you. We're trying to ultimately build a community, so we'd love to hear who you are and what you're hunting. So I got a new segment this week called shout outs. We're going to do shout outs for this. All right.
I am.
Shout out to Steve Porter Outdoors, Ohio for subscribing. Shout out to you, man. You should check out Steve Porter Outdoors, Ohio. He's got some big deer he's killed. Shout out to Cleveland Walker for subscribing as well. And
thanks,
this guy
Cleveland.
Thanks, Cleveland. This guy back in September subscribed, Johnny Bebo. Thank you.
Hey.
Thank you for subscribing.
That sounds like a real loser. Yeah, he sounds like a real loser.
Oh, that was a good day when Johnny subscribed to the channel. Good stuff.
I must have been one of the first.
Oh, yeah, that was a while. Well, yeah. First this year. That was good stuff. Well, we do appreciate when you subscribe, man. You make this dream happen. I think we got a goal. If we hit 500, I think I'm doing the Johnny stash. I think it's happening.
Ooh.
I think the whole HuntXP team's gonna have to rock the stash if we hit 500 subs. If we hit 1,000, I think we should give something away. I don't know what that something is yet, but if we hit it, we're gonna give something away. Something will be given.
I got this really sweet 5-panel HuntXP hat that I'm really digging.
Dude,
that's the place to start.
What a segue! I didn't even tell you that we got new merch. I didn't even tell him to do that. We got this sweet merch. Number one way to support the channel, because of course we know you guys are subscribing, you're commenting, you're liking, all those. That's just regular stuff. If you want to wear this sweet stuff, check out that tiger camo.
Come on,
what do you think of that?
Honestly, I love it.
That's sweet, man. I love that hat. We both have those 5 panels. Yeah.
I feel like if I were in 1984, this is the style of hat I would want to wear. And man, that stuff's coming right back. Like I said, many times I'm a school teacher, and the stuff the high schoolers are wearing right now, I'm like, dude, it's like what people were wearing. For like when the 90s or the 80s, and it's fantastic. Like it's stuff I recognize from when I was a kid. So.
Yes, exactly. Well, jump on over to our website. Maybe we'll have the products up on YouTube, but we got these trucker hats in 4 different versions of camo. We got a couple different colors of the 5-panel, and we got t-shirts over there. We might even have our black on black line series up on the website. Of course, that's the classic HuntXP tee. You got to have that one. But I have constructed the black on black blind setup, because if you're like me, you like wearing black in the blind, because that is the camouflage of the blind. And it happens to be a sweet color to wear on the street as well. So check that out. But that's what we got for you tonight. If you want to become a part of the HuntXP community, if you want to get access to Crockett, we've talked about that in previous episodes. You head on over to our website, fill out the sign up form, join the community. We'll get you plugged in with all we've got going. We got some great guests coming up. We got some people from Iowa that shoot just killer huge deer, talking about hunting down there. We've got people who've been producers in the industry. So we got a couple awesome guests coming up here. Stick with us, like, subscribe. Thanks for hanging out for episode 3. See you next time.
Hey there. Thanks for watching this video. I'm JD, founder and crew member of the HuntXP team. We're so grateful that you took time to watch this video, and hopefully it's helping you level up your hunting game. That's what we and our community is all about, and we want to invite you into this growing community of hunters that's all about leveling up each other's hunting game. So the first thing you can do is like and subscribe, but even more than that, we got some fun things going on over at our website, huntxp.com. We'd love for you to join our community there and stay connected with what we're doing, what we're working on, and we'd love to hear about what you're after. So thank you for watching this video. We'll see you next time.